I need you to stop what you're doing and really listen to what I'm about to tell you, because this could completely change how you see yourself. Right now, you're probably underestimating your own attractiveness by a massive margin. You're walking around thinking you're average, maybe even below average, while women around you are actually finding you far more attractive than you could ever imagine. Here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. The men who are genuinely attractive are often the last ones to know it. You see your flaws, your insecurities, your bad angles. You focus on what you think is wrong with you while being completely blind to what's actually right. Meanwhile, women are seeing you through a completely different lens, one that highlights your best features and finds appeal in things you'd never even consider attractive. You think attraction is just about having perfect features, a chiseled jawline, or looking like a movie star, but that's not how real attraction works, especially for women. Women are attracted to confidence, energy, presence, the way you carry yourself, how you make them feel. They're drawn to authenticity, kindness, intelligence, humor, qualities you probably possess but don't value in yourself. The brutal truth is that you're probably selling yourself short every single day. You're not approaching women you're attracted to because you assume they're out of your league. You're not putting yourself out there because you think you're not good looking enough. You're settling for less than you deserve because you don't realize what you actually bring to the table. But what if I told you that you've been wrong about yourself this entire time? What if the very things you're insecure about aren't deal breakers at all? What if you're actually much more attractive than you think, and the only thing holding you back is your own perception of yourself? Today, I'm going to show you 5 clear signs that you're more attractive than you realize. These aren't just feel-good platitudes. These are real indicators that other people, especially women, see you as significantly more appealing than you see yourself. Pay attention, because recognizing these signs could change everything about how you approach dating and relationships. Sign 1. People remember you after brief encounters. Here's something you've probably never thought about, but it's one of the strongest indicators of attractiveness. How memorable you are to people, especially after short interactions. If strangers remember you, bring up conversations you had weeks ago, or mention you to mutual friends after meeting you once. That's not normal. That's the mark of someone who made a real impression. You might think people just have good memories, but here's the reality. Most interactions are completely forgettable. People meet dozens of new faces every week and remember almost none of them. But when someone is genuinely attractive, not just physically, but in their overall presence, they stick in people's minds. This happens because attractive people create what psychologists call cognitive availability. You don't just take up space in the room. You take up space in people's thoughts after you leave. There's something about your energy, your conversation style, or the way you carry yourself that makes people want to think about you more. Pay attention to this pattern in your life. Do people you've met casually bring up things you said weeks later? Do mutual friends mention that someone was asking about you? Do strangers remember your name when you run into them again? These aren't coincidences. These are signs that you have a memorable, attractive presence. But here's what you're probably doing. You're dismissing these instances as people just being polite or having unusually good memories. You're not recognizing that being memorable is actually a rare and valuable trait that indicates significant attractiveness. The psychology behind this is that attractive people trigger what's called the halo effect. When someone finds you appealing, they remember more details about the interaction and view the entire experience more positively. If people are remembering you fondly and bringing you up in conversations, you're creating this effect without even realizing it. Start paying attention to how often people reference previous conversations with you, remember details about your life, or mention you when you're not around. This is one of the clearest signs that you're more attractive than you think. You're not just making casual impressions, you're making lasting ones. Sign 2. You get compliments you don't take seriously. This one is huge, and most guys completely miss it because they have trained themselves to deflect or dismiss positive feedback. You probably receive compliments regularly about your appearance, your personality, your sense of humor, your intelligence, but you brush them off as people just being nice or exaggerating. Here's what you need to understand. People don't give genuine compliments to people they don't actually find appealing. When someone tells you that you have great eyes, a nice smile, good style, or an attractive laugh, they're not lying to make you feel better. They're expressing genuine appreciation for something they find appealing about you. But you've probably developed this habit of deflecting compliments. Someone says, "You look good in that shirt," and you say, "Oh, this old thing?" Someone compliments your sense of humor, and you say, "I'm really not that funny." Someone says you have a great voice, and you change the subject. You're literally training people not to compliment you by showing them that you don't believe or appreciate their positive feedback. The psychology here is fascinating. Attractive people often receive so many compliments that they stop noticing them or start assuming they're meaningless. But the fact that multiple people, especially people who don't know each other, are noticing and commenting on the same attractive qualities in you is a huge indicator that these qualities are genuinely appealing. Start paying attention to the compliments you receive, even the small ones. Notice patterns. Do people often comment on your smile, your eyes, your voice, your style? Do they tell you you're funny, interesting, easy to talk to? These aren't random observations. They're people noticing your attractive qualities and feeling compelled to mention them. But here's the most important part. Start believing these compliments instead of dismissing them. When someone takes the time to say something positive about you, they're giving you valuable information about how others perceive you. The fact that you don't see these qualities in yourself doesn't make the compliments less valid. It makes your self-perception less accurate. Sign 3. You notice people looking at you more than you'd expect. This sign requires you to be honest about something you might have been ignoring or misinterpreting. Do you catch people looking at you? In coffee shops, at work, when you're out with friends? Do you notice women glancing your way and then looking away when you catch them? Do strangers seem to make eye contact with you more often than seems normal? Most guys who experience this either don't notice it at all, or they assume it's for negative reasons. You think people are staring because there's something wrong with your appearance, because you have food on your face, or because you look out of place. But here's what's actually happening. People look at attractive people. It's human nature to be drawn to things and people we find appealing. The psychology behind this is simple. Humans are naturally drawn to beauty and attractiveness. When someone is genuinely good-looking or has an appealing presence, people unconsciously look at them more. They're not staring rudely, they're just naturally drawn to observe someone they find attractive. But you're probably misreading these signals completely. When a woman looks at you and then looks away quickly, you might think she's uncomfortable or not interested. In reality, she might be checking you out and feeling self-conscious about being caught looking. When strangers make eye contact with you, you might think it's random, but attractive people receive significantly more eye contact than average-looking people. Here's how to test this. Start paying attention to how often people look at you versus how often they look at your friends when you're in group settings. Do servers, cashiers, or other service workers tend to focus more attention on you? Do people seem to naturally turn toward you in conversations? These are all indicators that you have a magnetic presence that draws people's attention. The key is to stop assuming that attention is negative and start recognizing it for what it often is. A sign that you're more visually appealing than you realize. Attractive people get looked at more, and if you're noticing people looking at you, there's probably a good reason for it. Sign 4. People open up to you. Quickly and easily. Here's an indicator of attractiveness that most people never consider. How quickly and easily people feel comfortable sharing personal information with you. If strangers tell you their life stories, if acquaintances open up about their problems, if people seem to trust you with sensitive information surprisingly quickly, that's not just about being a good listener. That's about being attractive on a deeper level. Attractiveness isn't just physical. It includes emotional and social appeal. When people find you attractive as a person, They want to connect with you, to be known by you, to have you understand them. This creates a dynamic where people feel safe being vulnerable around you because they unconsciously want to deepen the connection. You've probably experienced this. The cashier who suddenly starts telling you about their day, the coworker who shares personal details during casual conversation, the person at a party who ends up confiding in you about their relationship problems. You might think you just have one of those faces or that you're particularly approachable, but there's more to it than that. The psychology here is that attractive people who are appealing in personality, energy, and presence, create what researchers call interpersonal warmth. Others feel drawn to them and want to be closer to them, which manifests as increased openness and vulnerability. But here's what you're probably doing. You're assuming this happens to everyone. You think everyone gets told personal stories by strangers, that everyone has people opening up to them randomly. But this isn't normal. This is a sign that people find you appealing enough to want a deeper connection, even in brief encounters. Pay attention to how people interact with you versus how they interact with others in the same situations. Do service workers chat with you more? Do people at social events gravitate towards you for deeper conversations? Do acquaintances share personal information with you that they don't share with others? This pattern indicates that you have an attractive, trustworthy presence that draws people in. Sign 5. You're harder on yourself than anyone else is. This final sign might be the most important one of all. If you're constantly criticizing your appearance, focusing on your flaws, or assuming people notice your imperfections, you're probably being far harsher on yourself than anyone else would ever be. The people who are most critical of their own attractiveness are often the ones who are genuinely attractive but can't see it. Here's what happens. You know every single flaw, every bad angle, every feature you wish was different. You see yourself in the worst possible lighting, from the worst possible angles, on your worst possible days. But other people see you in normal lighting, from normal angles, presenting your normal self, which is probably much more attractive than you realize. You focus on the small imperfections that literally no one else notices or cares about. That tiny scar, that slightly asymmetrical feature, that part of your appearance you've been self-conscious about since high school. These things are invisible to most people and completely irrelevant to your overall attractiveness. The psychology behind this is called the spotlight effect. You think people are paying much more attention to your flaws than they actually are. Meanwhile, they're seeing your overall presence, your energy, your smile, your personality. The big picture that creates genuine attractiveness. Here's a reality check. Think about the people you find attractive. Do you analyze their flaws, or do you just experience them as attractive overall? You probably don't notice or care about their imperfections because you're responding to their total presence. That's exactly how people see you too. If friends and family tell you that you're too hard on yourself, if people seem surprised when you express insecurities about your appearance, if others don't seem to notice or care about the things that bother you about yourself, these are all signs that your self-perception is significantly more negative than reality. The most attractive people often have the hardest time seeing their own appeal because they're so focused on their perceived flaws that they can't see the forest for the trees. If you're being overly critical of yourself, while others seem to see you more positively, trust their perspective over your own insecurities. The psychology behind underestimating your own attractiveness. Understanding why attractive people often don't recognize their own appeal is crucial for shifting your self-perception. There are several psychological factors at play that cause people to underestimate their attractiveness. First, there's familiarity bias. You see yourself every day, so you become bored with your own appearance. What feels ordinary to you might actually be quite striking to others who don't see you constantly. You've lost the ability to see yourself with fresh eyes. Second, there's the comparison trap. You're constantly comparing yourself to idealized images in media, to carefully curated social media photos, or to people who represent your specific insecurities. But real attractiveness in the real world is much more diverse and achievable than these unrealistic standards. Third, there's negativity bias. Your brain is wired to notice and remember negative feedback more than positive feedback. One criticism about your appearance might stick with you for years, while dozens of compliments get forgotten or dismissed. Finally, there's the self-protection mechanism. It's psychologically safer to underestimate your attractiveness than to overestimate it, because rejection hurts less when you weren't expecting success anyway. But this protective mechanism keeps you from recognizing your actual appeal. What this means for your life: if you're recognizing these signs in yourself, you need to fundamentally shift how you see yourself and how you approach interactions with others, especially in dating and relationships. You've been operating from a false premise about your own attractiveness, which has probably limited your choices and opportunities. Start approaching people you find attractive instead of assuming they're out of your league. Most of the time, the league exists only in your head. If you're displaying these signs of being more attractive than you think, you probably have access to a much wider range of potential partners than you've been pursuing. Stop settling for situations, relationships, or treatment that doesn't match your actual value. If you're genuinely attractive but have been thinking you're not, you might have been accepting less than you deserve because you didn't realize you had other options. Begin putting yourself in situations where you can meet new people and make connections. If you're more attractive than you think, the main thing holding you back from better relationships and more opportunities is probably your own limited self-perception. Practical steps to shift your self-perception. Start by conducting an honest assessment of the feedback you receive from others. Write down compliments you've received in the past month, instances where people seemed particularly interested in talking to you, and times when you caught people looking at you. Look for patterns that you might have been dismissing. Ask trusted friends for honest feedback about how others perceive you. You might be surprised to learn that people see you much more positively than you see yourself. Sometimes an outside perspective is necessary to break through your own biases. Stop deflecting compliments and start accepting them gracefully. When someone says something positive about you, simply say, "Thank you," instead of arguing or deflecting. This will help you start internalizing positive feedback instead of automatically rejecting it. Work on addressing the psychological factors that cause you to underestimate yourself. Challenge negative self-talk. Limit social media consumption that triggers comparisons, and focus on your positive qualities instead of fixating on perceived flaws. Final thoughts. Embracing your true attractiveness. The most tragic thing about underestimating your own attractiveness is all the opportunities you miss because of it. The people you don't approach, the chances you don't take, the relationships you don't pursue, all because you have an inaccurate perception of your own appeal. If you're recognizing these signs in yourself, it's time to update your self-image to match reality. You're not being vain or arrogant by acknowledging your attractiveness. You're being honest about what others already see in you. Remember that attractiveness is multifaceted. It's not just about having perfect features, it's about your overall presence, your energy, your personality, your confidence. You might be attractive in ways you've never even considered. The people who find love, success, and fulfillment in their personal lives aren't necessarily the most conventionally beautiful people. They're the people who recognize their own value and aren't afraid to put themselves out there based on that recognition. Stop waiting until you feel attractive enough to pursue what you want. If these signs resonate with you, you already are attractive enough. The only thing left is to start believing it and acting accordingly. Your attractiveness isn't something you need to build or develop. It's something you need to recognize and embrace. The world is already seeing it. Now it's time for you to see it too.